Azure Key Vault is a powerful cloud service designed for securely storing and managing secrets. But what exactly are these secrets? Well, they can be anything you want to tightly control access to API keys, passwords, certificates, cryptographic keys, and so on. Hi, this is Gautam, Microsoft MVP. Welcome to my channel. Before getting into this video, I highly recommend you to go through my blog on secure sensitive data with Azure Key Vault using RBAC approach for ASP.NET Core Web Application. This is basically a get start guide on integration of Azure Key Vault with ASP.NET Core Web Application. So where I detailedly explained about creating a ASP.NET Core Web Application and registering the application with Microsoft Entra ID to create a service principal, so that we can do the role assignment with Azure Key Vault resource to securely access the secret from Azure Key Vault from our application. So basically, I have written this blog for the dev environment setup. So here you can find the two statement, which is the statement which is the keyword URI to fetch a keyword URI from app settings. The I mean basically the keyword endpoint, and the next statement is about to establish the authentication mechanism using default Azure credentials with Microsoft Entra ID. So this default Azure credential, it's kind of a service which is going to establish the authentication mechanism with the Microsoft Entra ID in particular order. So based on the Microsoft documentation, so the Azure default Azure credential attempts to authenticate via following mechanism in this order: stopped when one succeeds. So basically it starts with environment. So environment is nothing but it's first it try to read the client credential from the environmental variable. So once it is the credentials are available in the environmental variable, it's going to authenticate through that information with Microsoft Entra ID. So then if it doesn't available, it goes to the next step. It will check for the workload identity. So basically for the dev environment, what I did, I just set a environmental variable where I defined the client credentials. So if you go to that application, so this application actually it's a kind of a get start application, integration of ASP.NET Core Web Application with Azure Key Vault. So this is basically available in GitHub. So I will be posting this GitHub link in description so that you can explore it. So here we defined this add Azure Key Vault with the default Azure credentials without explicitly mentioning about the authentication mechanism. So basically, what it will first try with the environment approach. So in the environment approach, so it will try to read the environmental variables. Basically the client credentials, which is the tenant ID, client secrets. So based on this client credential information, so it will establish or initiate the authentication mechanism with the Microsoft Entra ID. So once the authentication is successful, yeah, then through the configuration we can easily get the secret from Azure Key Vault. So this is from the development environment. So if I try to run this application during the startup, it will initiate the authentication mechanism based on the environmental variable information. So here you can see the Azure Key Vault value. Hello, I am secret. This is actually my the secret value. So now when you try to publish this application to IIS, after deploying into the IIS, I'm just assuming here you are deploying the application in IIS on premise. Okay, if it is a cloud, if you're using a cloud deployment model, so then Microsoft it's recommend you to go with the managed identity mechanism to establish the connection between your application and Microsoft Entra ID for the authentication process. So I will try to make another video about that process. And right now I'm just focusing on deploying the application in IIS, which is basically on-prem. Now if you switch to the IIS, here you can see your site. This is the ASP.NET Core site, the Key Vault integration. So I deployed it here. Now when you try to browse this application, so during the startup it will try to read the um, client credential information from the environmental variable. So since the environmental variables are not available, you're getting this error, http error 500.30. So which means ASP.NET Core app failed to start. So let's add the environmental variables, basically the client credentials here. So here you can find this configuration editor under this management section. Just double click on it, and here make sure you are into this section system.web server ASP.NET Core, ASP.NET Core from Azure Key Vault web.config. So here you can find this environmental variables. Here using this option you can add the environmental variable, which is our client credentials. So I'm just going to add it one by one. The first one is the tenant ID, Azure tenant ID, my tenant ID, and the next one is my client ID, client ID, and add one more, which is our client secret. Well, so we successfully added all these three information about the tenant ID, client ID, and client secret as an environmental variable for this Azure Key Vault site. So close this window, make sure you click on this apply button to save the changes. So the changes are successfully saved, and now try to browse this site. Here we go. You can see this Azure Key Vault value and hello I am secret. This is a secret actually from Azure Key Vault. Yeah, now we successfully deployed our application, which is integrated with Azure Key Vault into IIS by setting up the environmental variable. Let me know if you have any question on this process in the comments below. Thank you for watching.